everyone, my name is Rania Vishnu and welcome to the very first episode of Serenaid Sessions. So Serenaid the podcast will follow a two-part structure. Each week I will release a Serenaid story, which is what episode 1 was, and it's basically a memoir style reading of the blog post for that week. And then there'll be Serenaid Sessions, which is what this is, and it's more of an unscripted, laid-back style conversation. I've left the structure of it quite loose because knowing my personality, I might want to talk about something different each week, and I kind of just wanted the space to do that. So that's what Serenaid Sessions is. So a little bit about me. I was born in Sydney, Australia, and I did my school there, I did my uni there. And then in 2013, when I was 24, I moved to Brisbane and I have lived here since. I am a mum. I have 2 little girls. My eldest is 5.5 and she just started school this year. And my youngest just turned 2 last month. I have a background in marketing. That's what I studied at uni, and I have worked in the industry since, until I took a step back when I had my eldest daughter during COVID. And since then, I kind of went back a little bit. I did some contract work, a bit of part-time work, but most of the time I have been a stay-at-home mum. So Serenaid, the podcast, how did it all come about? That's basically what episode 1 is about, and it's called The Road to Serenaid. I've called it part 1 because there were so many factors and so many elements that kind of led to me creating this podcast, which I won't talk about all of it in this particular episode because there is a few different reasons for it. But in this particular blog post and the theme for this week, I talked mainly about my love for music and radio and a little bit of my upbringing. I guess talking more generally, Serenaid kind of came out of a need for me to have a consistent creative outlet. As I said, my background's in marketing. Marketing is a very creative job. Every day you're wearing a different hat. One day you're in PR, one day you're in communications, one day you're marketing, one day you're a photographer, then you're a videographer, then you're a social media manager. You're wearing a different hat every single day. I loved that, and I loved just not having that structure and having a role that was so creative and so different. And then going from that into stay-at-home motherhood, which is so different. It's very structured. It's lots of routine and all that. So for me, I definitely struggled with the transition from working full-time to being a stay-at-home mom. And whilst that was very much my choice and what I wanted to do, and I'd always planned that when I did have kids, I'd take that step back and I want to do that. It definitely didn't come easy for me. I know that there are a lot of mums out there that love doing it and love being a full-time stay-at-home mum, and I love being a mum to our 2 little girls, but I definitely also do better when I have a creative outlet. So basically, in search of a creative outlet, I picked up some of the modelling work which I had started when I was living in Sydney, and put myself more into that space of modelling and singing and musicals. And I love doing that. I really enjoy it, but the work is not consistent. At least it's not for me. It is very up and down, and so I definitely needed something that was a little bit more consistent. And that's basically how Serenaid came about, more in a general sense. So Serenaid, the podcast name, why is it spelt like that? What does it mean? So Serenaid is obviously the word serenade, but I have spelt it Serenaid, so Serenaid. And the reason for that for me, and some of the stuff that I touched on in the blog as well, is that for me personally, my philosophy is that music and creativity are much like medicine. I really do believe that they have healing properties. When I look back at my life and the different things that I went through, the hardships, the good times, the bad times, music for me has been the constant throughout. It's when I've been going through a tough time growing up in my teenage years, or even those early 20s when you're going through heartbreak and you're going through that dating period. Music I definitely turn to. And then when I'm working out and I'm exercising and if I need something to motivate me, it's music. If I'm looking to calm myself down and I'm looking for something that's going to ground me, it's music. I'm using it for meditation. And then through motherhood, there's been times where I've been in a dark room rocking my baby to sleep for half an hour, and if I didn't have music, I think I probably would have lost my mind. I would listen to music that's a little bit more uplifting so that I'm not kind of stuck in a different headspace, and it definitely helped me. And it's not just me, I notice it even with the girls when one of them might be having a tough day, or we wake up in the morning and things are a little bit off, we'll put some music on. I really do see how it can shift their mood and their energy and really sets the tone for the day. I believe music is such a big part of my life, and I feel like it's already a big part of the girls' life as well. So for me, Serenade is the music side of Serenade and the gift of a song to someone, but then it's aid in the sense that it's helpful, it's supportive, and it's healing. I also changed the spelling because I wanted it to be a little bit more inclusive. Normally when you think of Serenade, you think of love and romance, and I wanted to kind of shift that to a more broader perspective, something that was inclusive to the whole music being healing theme. So each week will feature a song, which is also why I called it Serenade, and that song will tie together the blog, the podcast, and the theme for that week. It might be a song that I listened to at that time that took me through that period, or it might just be a song that I feel is reflective of the themes that I'm discussing in that particular episode. And when I was coming up with the concept for Serenade, I was like, I don't want to just talk. I kind of wanted to create an experience. I wanted the people that were listening to be transported somewhere. As I said, that's what music did for me. And I wanted to bring together the words and the story and my own emotions and what I was going through at that time, tied together with a song, and really let the listeners have the ability to kind of shift their state of mind and let the music take you wherever it is that may be. So that there basically is an overview of Serenade the podcast and what you can expect each week, structure-wise, who I am, why Serenade was created, and what my intentions are with this podcast. So from there, I move on to episode 1, The Road to Serenade, part 1, and it opens on me starting my first Sangeetam class. It's on the night of Vijayadashami, and if you don't know too much about Vijayadashami, it's basically an auspicious day in the Sri Lankan Hindu calendar, and it's basically believed to help foster discipline, commitment, perseverance, all the qualities that are essential for mastering different art forms. And it's a day that a lot of parents will put their kids into new creative pursuits, so whether that's violin or verna or sangeetam or dance or miradangam or tabla, that's a day that the parents are putting all their kids into these particular activities. Sangeetam has been such a big part of my life. I started when I was 5 years old, and all through primary school and high school and uni, and then even for a little bit of time after I moved here to Brisbane as an adult. I went to a teacher here as well. I don't go anymore, but it was definitely a big part of my life growing up. I sang at the temple every Friday, and just at like religious events, and then for Tamil concerts and things like that. So I had a lot of experience singing on stage, which I felt really helped me in terms of building my confidence. If that's something that you're thinking about for your children, I highly encourage it, because I know for me that the words of encouragement and the words of affirmation definitely were not happening at home. So having that experience on stage, singing and dancing, made a huge difference to all parts of my life growing up, whether it was making friends or how I approach interviews later on down the track when I started to work. I found, I definitely think having that stage presence makes a big difference. when I did start to get into modeling and acting, and the musicals, again, having that had that experience on stage really helped when I would do a runway show or being in front of a camera. That doesn't mean that I don't get nervous and things like that, but having that experience made a big difference for me. From there, in the episode and blog, I kind of go into my love for radio and I guess Australian music. And I kind of talk about some of my experience growing up as a child. It's really different growing up in Australia when you are born to parents that were born and raised in Sri Lanka. You know, my family and my parents were very, very traditional, and they were quite strong in wanting to uphold those values here in Australia as well, and raise my brother and I under those same beliefs. And while that works for other kids, I am a different kind of person. I don't like to live by structure and rules. I am very much a free spirit. So for me, that was definitely a struggle. A lot of the restrictions and the rules and the difference between my brother, what he can do and what I couldn't do. A lot of the time I was just at home. I wasn't allowed to go out much. Wasn't really allowed to have friends over or go out over to friends' houses. So a lot of the time I just kind of sit around, listen to music on the radio. And yeah, I loved Carl and Jackie O growing up. I remember in high school, like I used to listen to Carl and Jackie O every morning, like without fail. I had like this Sony Walkman that I would carry around, and Carl and Jackie O ends at 9 o'clock, but we start school at 8:50. So I would be there with my Walkman and my earphones and listening to it as we were in a homeroom. And I'd be trying to tell my teacher, I'd be like, no, like I need to listen to the last 10 minutes. Like you don't understand. That's when all the chaos would be happening in those last 10, 15 minutes on Carl and Jackie O. And I was like, I can't turn it off. I had to listen. So yeah, that's kind of how radio played a big part throughout my life as a child and as a teenager in high school as well. And then from there, I started talking about love song dedications and how I found it. I would flip through stations a lot because you'd be trying to find the songs that you like, right? It wasn't like iTunes where I could just go and search a song that I wanted to listen to and play it. You were always switching from station to station trying to find the songs that you like. And that's when I somehow stumbled on love song dedications one night, and from the first time I listened, that first night, I was hooked. If you know me, you know that I love. Romantic comedies is like my favorite theme of movie to watch. TV shows, books. I love going to weddings. I love hearing about other people's personal lives and their love stories. So for me, love song dedications was like all of that in one radio station. It was the songs, it was listening to other people's love stories and other people's lives, and yeah, I was hooked from day one. And then we kind of finish up. I was actually writing this episode on my notes app on my phone, and I was sitting in a waiting room, and Ellie Goulding's Love Me Like You Do, which is a song that I walked down the aisle to for my weddings, came on the radio, and I thought, oh, that's so random, and I thought I have to incorporate this into the blog somehow. And then I finally end on a high school love affair with Richard, and I said you'll have to wait until next week's episode to find out. The serenade for this week's episode was How Did I Get Here by Odessa. I found this song quite a few years ago. I can't remember when, and I remember the first time I listened to it, I was just like mesmerized. I was completely taken somewhere else. The song is quite different in that it doesn't really have any lyrics apart from a few sentences. Even the fact that the song is so limited in lyrics, it's that same question again and again. How did I get here? How did I get here? I feel like they intentionally made it quite ambiguous so that it kind of invites you to reflect on your own life. Normally when you listen to lyrics, they're describing where a particular person's at in their life, whereas this is an open-ended question. It's a blank canvas. So I felt like it was really fitting for this particular episode where I opened on saying sometimes you feel like your life is more like a playlist on shuffle than it is a well thought out soundtrack. And that is the end of Serenaid Sessions episode 1. I hope you've enjoyed getting to know a little bit more about me and my experience with music and how it has shaped me from childhood all the way through to now. I hope you've been able to reflect on some of your own journeys maybe as well. And then also just understanding a little bit more about Serenaid and what you can expect if you do decide to be a listener. If you have any thoughts, if you have any questions, you can DM me on Instagram. Tell me what you think. I'd love to know. If you are listening to this on a Friday night, then I hope you have a great weekend. I look forward to speaking to you next week. Enjoy this week's Serenade.